You know what's better than announcing the release date for your highly anticipated upcoming game? Announcing that release date alongside a brand new trailer, the announcement of a physical edition, a soundtrack, and 3 new guest characters, and it's all coming in a little over a week. What the heck is going on around here? My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my coverage of news for releases of upcoming tactical strategy titles like, I don't know, Slug Tactics, hey, news around that, guides, gameplay, etc., then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Doubly so, seeing as how I'm back from a long hiatus after my time in Japan, and getting the algorithm kickstarted a little bit would help massively. So doubly thank you for those of you who decide to help out a little bit. But yes, the news of the day today that hit me while I was in the middle of my day job is that we finally have a proper release date for Slug Tactics. Of course, if you've been paying any attention to the channel, this is a game that I've covered a couple of times in the past, including when I got early access to the demo, courtesy of the devs at Dotemu, so thank you for that. And yeah, I'm pretty hyped for this one. The game is coming November 5th to like every platform imaginable, PS4, PS5, all of the Xbox series of consoles, PC, Switch. Like, if you have any sort of modern or last-gen console or a PC, you can play this one, and from what I've played of the demo thus far, it's absolutely worth checking out. Now, of course, as I mentioned, we do not just have the announcement of this release date. If that's all that you came here for, then by all means, you can click away if you want, but they released a lot of new information here as well, including 3 new guest characters that you may be familiar with if you are familiar with the history of SNK. We're going to talk about all of that, everything that we saw in the trailer, and the other news attached to Slug Tactics coming up right now. If you remember back when I played the demo, I pointed out the fact that there did in fact seem to be room for more characters to fill out the roster that were not available in the demo, and now it seems like we finally have an idea of who those characters might be. There was a lot of theorizing going on in my comments, saying maybe different variants of the main cast from different versions of Slug, things like that. No. No, we have some guest characters here that, from what I understand, have been in some of the Slug games. They are the Akari Warriors, Clark Still, Ralph Jones, and perhaps the most well-known and popular, Leona Hydern, I believe I'm pronouncing that name properly, who will be joining as fully playable characters that you can choose for your team in Slug Tactics. Now, I know very little about Akari Warriors. I've honestly never heard of Clark Still or Ralph Jones before. I have seen Leona Hydern around because of her being in the various different like King of Fighters games as SNK representation there, and then also because she's an attractive, fit character from a video game, so God only knows how much art has just scrolled passively across my feeds over the years without me really knowing who she was, but I recognized her immediately, so that'll tell you how much I've seen out there. Fan artists. Keep fan art. You're about to have some new content to work with very soon here from the looks of it. I'm super excited that we're going to have these characters here, though. As someone who is not super familiar with the history of Slug or SNK in general or any of their games, it's going to be nice to have an introduction to more than just the cast of Slug, because I love learning about the history of gaming, especially things that I really don't know much about. As far as how these characters play, it does look like they're going to have some pretty unique features going on. Clark seems like he's a little bit more of like a tanky frontline character, which is nice because we definitely need some of those in comparison to the Slug cast and how they played. Looks like there's a lot of throwing enemies around, maybe like tossing them into explosives or just moving them out of the line of sight or damage of your allies, or maybe tossing them into range of your allies. Repositioning stuff is always a strong feature in any sort of strategy game, any sort of tactics game, so I imagine that depending on how the rest of his skills shake out, Clark will be a very popular pick for any team. Ralph Jones is a bit more of a short-range combat specialist. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Tarma, honestly, but definitely with some more fisticuffs and less knives and shotguns. Throws around punches, you can charge at enemies. Seems like there's going to be a lot of really get close up in your face and disrupt tactics, which could be very dangerous depending on what sorts of mitigation he has. He could wind up being more of a liability than an asset, but I imagine that the devs have wanted him to play well, so hopefully that won't be too much of a concern. Now, potentially dangerous, very frontline punching melee style issues aside, I gotta say, he looks like he's got a pretty devastating ultimate attack here with this fiery jump up into the air and punch the ground and do a bunch of AoE damage attack. I can only imagine this is one of his highest rank, maybe final quote-unquote ultimate abilities, but If you have a giant AoE punch that you can do periodically, if you've got the right resources stacked up and just annihilate a large group of enemies, not the worst thing. Hell, even if you can just set it up so you can get a bunch of chain attacks with your other characters, like, also not terrible. So maybe here we're looking at a character that has some neutral game drawbacks and vulnerabilities, but then has a big ultimate move that can set up the rest of your team for greatness, or just clear out a bunch of dangerous enemies. I don't know. We'll have to see. And then finally, Leona actually has some interesting capabilities of doing, like, decoys and replacing things, kind of like a tricky, almost like a blue deck character, if you're familiar with Magic at all. Lots of distractions, lots of sort of mitigation and subterfuge, while still being able to dish out damage, so she's going to be a fun one to play with. I'm excited to see what her weapon upgrades and skill upgrades wind up looking like, because you can get really crazy with that type of thing for sure. What's interesting about how Leona is described is that she's actually able to create decoys of herself from enemies that you down with her. And depending on how targeting is going to work, that could actually really be a huge force multiplier for how you're able to mitigate damage to your team. She also seems like she has a really wide range napalm blast. It's going to be great for damage, and also just like some decent other damaging type attacks. So of the three characters that they showed off here, Leona definitely looks like she's going to have some of the most interesting gameplay, and I'm very excited to be able to get my hands on her and see how she's actually able to integrate with the other characters that I've spent time with in the demo. This currently brings the playable cast of characters up to 7. We'll have to see if there are any more surprise announcements or maybe secret characters that are found in the game just as we play once the game drops. I would not be surprised if there wasn't. It seems like these 3 probably fill out the playable roster from what I've seen in the demo, but you never know what's been changed since then, so it'll be exciting to see if there's anything new that drops. Now, as far as other gameplay features are concerned, the trailer did have some interesting looking stuff, but nothing too untoward in terms of overall gameplay features, more just showcasing how these different characters are going to be functioning. But it is nice to see some new metal slugs, a potential shot of a new boss right at the very end, and different types of terrain that we're going to be able to navigate through. It seems like we are still locked to 3 characters in any given mission, so no breaking out of that, it seems, which is a little bit of a shame. It'd be nice to be able to get another character or 2 in there, but who knows what's going to happen. And overall, just the presentation of the title is looking awesome, the more and more different terrain and maps we see. Now, as far as that physical release is concerned, I've been trawling through social media, different news, websites, articles, things like that, and it seems right now like it's loosely confirmed that there is going to be a physical release at some point down the line for Metal Slug Tactics for you physical collectors out there. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of information out about it that I've been able to see thus far. If there's anything new or interesting that comes out in relative proximity to the release of this video, I'll add it in a pinned comment or something like that. But it seems right now that the devs are saying it's happening, and that's all they can say right now. So if you're interested in getting a physical release of Metal Slug Tactics, keep an eye on the official, I would say, social media channels probably for both Metal Slug and for Dotemu, the developers, as well as, you know, content creators like myself. And once there is news about that, I'm sure you'll be able to find it out there when it is available. Now, something that I'm particularly excited about is the fact that we are getting that full release as well of the original soundtrack for Metal Slug Tactics. It's composed by T. Lopes, who seems like they're getting quite the repertoire under their belt with other notable titles like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge, and Sonic Mania, which from what I've seen have had very well received and very popular OSTs. And I mean, for everything we've heard of the soundtrack and MST thus far, it is also an absolute banger. So we're going to have both digital and physical releases for that soundtrack, which is very, very nice. You can get the digital through Steam, and there will actually be a physical vinyl release through Kid Katana Records. So if you're someone who likes to pick up some vinyl, that might not be a bad one to look for. All told, it's looking like MST is shaping up to be an extremely strong entry in the overall tactics genre. Of course, it is a roguelike, so for those of you who are not maybe into that style, then it might be a little bit of a turn-off. But from what I played of the demo, runs are very compelling. There's a lot of differences to them. There's a lot of meta progression that doesn't feel annoying to try to achieve or anything like that. And that was just with one region to go through. Now that we're going to have access to the full game with all the regions, all of the bosses, and a larger suite of characters to play with, I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of content to grind through as you do different difficulty levels, unlock different weapons, unlock different skills, all that type of fun stuff. I'm absolutely going to be playing the game on release. I'll be more than happy to put out guides, reviews, all sorts of content along along those lines. So if you're going to be playing Metal Slug Tactics, or you're even just interested in seeing what it's about and kind of how it's received after release before you maybe pick it up for yourself, you can keep everything tuned to my channel here, as I will definitely be talking about it in, a little over a week, which is absolutely insane to think about. For now, though, I'm just very happy that we have a release date. I'm happy that we know more about these characters, and I'm happy to see that there's going to be some fun physical items in play as well for those of you who care about that. For now, though, I think that's everything to talk about today, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, and remember, be good to each other. Bye now.